Hi there, my name is Sarah Hunstead. I am a paediatric nurse, mum of two, author of A Life, a Finger, a Pea, Up a Nose, and I'm also founder of CPR Kids. And at CPR Kids, what we do is that we empower parents and family with the life-saving skills of baby and child first aid. Now, some of you may have just been with me on the Facebook Live. We've some odd reason Facebook decided to shut down, so we're going to start at the beginning again. So today we are talking about heat-related illness in babies and children. Now, this is quite topical at the moment because tragically, it's hard to find the words when talking about it. 3 children have died recently due to heat-related illness. One thing I want to make clear is this isn't a forum to be talking about why or what happened to these kids. This is an absolute tragedy, and this is not the forum to be talking about. It's not the right place. What we're about here is empowering you with the knowledge of what to do if your child does suffer from a heat-related illness. And so this can be just on a really hot day. It could be, there's a huge amount of reasons why this may happen. We are going to concentrate on the first aid and knowing what to do today, and that is the important part. So, first of all, things we need to remember. Babies and children, particularly small children, can overheat very, very quickly. They don't have the mechanisms that us adults do. They don't sweat. They can't take their clothes off. They can't move to a cooler area. They can't go and help themselves to a nice icy cool drink out of the fridge. And so that's why they rely on us to help keep them cool. And that's a really important thing for us to remember, is they can't regulate their temperature like what we can. And that is why it is important, particularly in babies, that we are aware of that and that we definitely do make sure that we are conscious of that fact. So what can we do? In extreme weather, and when it is very, very hot, we do need to be able to keep the kids cool. First of all, in babies who are bottle or breastfed, we need to make sure that they are having lots of frequent feeds. So you may actually need to be feeding more in the hot weather, and that's an important thing to be aware of, that your baby can become dehydrated very, very quickly, and that's why keeping up the fluids is really, really important. And so the same in toddlers and older kids as well. We need to keep track of how much they're drinking. So sometimes the little ones are too busy and they don't have time to stop for a drink. So being able to go, oh, hang on a sec here, have a sip out of the bottle is really important. My two are certainly a lot older now. They're in primary school, and they will come home with a full drink bottle sometimes on a hot day. And I'll say to them, what are you doing? You know it's a hot day. You have to drink more. And they're like, oh, Mum, sorry, we were busy, running around doing this and forgot. Oh, I had a bit of a drink out of the bubbler. So just making sure that we're aware of even encouraging the older ones and ourselves too to make sure that we are absolutely having lots and lots of fluids, because remember, the smaller the child, the easier they become dehydrated. And we talk about fluids going in, but what about fluids going out as well? So we need to have a look at their wheeze. Now, little babies, they can't concentrate their urine, so you're just going to see the same colour urine. That's not going to change. But what about also the amount of wet nappies that they're having? So we need to think, oh, hang on a sec, they've got a lot less wet nappies than usual. That can be a concerning sign that they may actually have a heat-related illness. So being aware they should have lots of wet nappies as usual. And thinking about the older kids too, and us, is their urine really concentrated? What colour is it? So it should be a really light yellow, really pale yellow colour. If it's looking like a Chardonnay, no good. If it's like a beer, really bad, okay? We never want to get it to there, all right? That's not good at all. And I'm sure us grown-ups, there are times where we've gone, oh, geez, that's not looking too good. that is a definite signal that there is something wrong, that they're dehydrated, that we need to be getting fluids into them. So they should be really, really pale in colour, just this slight, yellowy tinge to almost water-like. That's perfect hydration, I should say, not dehydration. So number one, make sure that they are getting enough fluids and that they are having enough coming out of them, and it's not too concentrated in the older kids as well, because remember, little babies can't concentrate their urine. So what else? What else do we need to do? So we've talked about drinking enough fluids and the wheeze coming out. What about what you're dressing your child in as well? So just loose, cool clothing. Thinking about, what are you comfortable in? So if you are comfortable in something, you just need to be in your singlet and your undies. Maybe they do as well. So thinking about those things, we're not putting too many layers on. And even going to bed, putting them down for their nap, being conscious of, hang on a sec, putting them in their sleeping bag. Is it a really heavy one? We need to be conscious of that as well. And what about, too, the air conditioning? Now, we can be tempted sometimes to put the air conditioning on 16 degrees and chill the house down to an iceberg, but that's not ideal either. Okay, we don't want it to get too cold. They're going to get uncomfortable. So certainly New South Wales Health recommends that the room temperature, you can set an air conditioning to around 24 to 26 degrees. And I'll post that fact sheet down below here as well. And we'll also get a link to Red Nose, which talks about safe sleeping in kids and temperatures too. So we'll pop the links to that down below. So we've talked about the clothing. We've talked about making sure we're having lots and lots of fluids. And those of you who are breastfeeding out there as well, make sure that you keep your fluids up even more in the hot weather as well. Don't forget about yourself too. So what else? We talked a bit about the environment, about if you've got air conditioning available. I don't have air conditioning in my house. We've got ceiling fans. So we get the ceiling fans going. So making sure that you do, if you have fans, use them. However, making sure that they are in a safe place, especially when there are toddlers around, because we don't need any extra injuries from the fans as well. So maybe you need to move to sleep. Maybe you need to move to the coolest room in the house and move Bub with you as well. So think about that. Avoid going out in the hottest parts of the day too, or maybe if you are going to go out, maybe it's heading off to local shops, something like that, where there may be some air conditioning. So if you live, in a rural or regional area, it's about thinking, okay, maybe the kid's going to be inside for a while when it's this extreme heat, but certainly that's something that I'm sure that you are used to and you do have lots of strategies around as well. Now, what else? We need to mention this, of course, very, very briefly, but remember, we're talking about what to do for heat-related illness here. Never be tempted to leave your child alone even for a second in the car. It can heat up to 30 to 40 degrees above the outside temperature, and that is enormous. So just, of course, even if you're just running in somewhere quickly into the shops, take your child with you. I've got two kids. They were, they're just over a year apart in age. I understand how tricky that is. I know how difficult it can be, especially when they're asleep and all that kind of stuff, but especially we need to be aware of doing that. That's all we're going to talk about on that today, because remember, this is no judgment zone. We're not going into the why or why not that happens at the moment. We're talking about what to do. Importantly, if you're taking your child out in a pram or a capsule, do not tie the cloth or a towel or anything tightly around the edge. That can make a huge difference in temperature. We recently did and go onto our Facebook page, scroll down until you find our pram experiment. We found that there was a huge amount of degrees difference, up to 9 degrees difference, and other experiments have shown up to 15 degrees difference when there is lack of air circulation in the pram. So please do not tightly tie around those covers over the pram that are, like the muslin cloths or towels, things like that. Please use a cover over the top that's meant to be there for your pram that allows a significant amount of air circulation, because that is the key. So now we need to think about what are the signs and symptoms of heat-related illness in kids. Now, two big things. One, we can have heat exhaustion. Heat exhaustion is it's basically before heat stroke. Heat stroke is a life-threatening medical emergency. We will go into that in a minute, but first let's talk about heat exhaustion. So the signs and symptoms of heat exhaustion are as follows. So first of all, they look a little bit unwell. They might be more cranky than usual. So they're a bit miserable. You're finding it harder to console them. They might have pale, and so it doesn't matter what color skin your child has, whether it's a pale skin or whether it's a darker skin, they are paler than usual, and it can be quite clammy to touch, so really quite clammy. They may have dark urine if they're not, quite a young baby, because young babies can't concentrate their urine. You might find that they are more lethargic, that they are sleepier than usual, or they might be a little bit floppy, and that is very concerning. Sometimes, particularly if they're breastfed, they might be quite fussy about their feeding, and also they might actually be the opposite, where they're really wanting to drink. They may be absolutely just, cranky and crying and wanting to drink as much as possible. Their fontanelle in a small baby might be a little bit sunken, or when they cry, they may not have as many tears as usual. If you could suspect heat exhaustion in a child, you must seek medical help. There's no two ways about it. You must seek medical help. And what are you going to do? You're going to remove all of their excess clothes and move to a cooler area in your home or wherever you are if possible. Try and give your baby and child drinks. So you can offer them breast. If they're little, you can get them to try and drink, ideally an electrolyte solution such as Hydrolyte or Pedialyte, not sports drinks. You may want to give them, cool water. And the only time you don't do that is if they are drowsy, they're not fully conscious, because if they're not fully conscious, they may not be able to swallow properly. Really important. So what else are you going to do? You can actually cover them with cool, damp cloths and refresh that regularly so they are nice and cool, or sponge them down with cool water while you are waiting for medical help. It is really important that you do seek medical help, because they can get sick very, very quickly. The next thing that we need to be aware of is heat stroke. Now, the signs and symptoms of heat stroke, what you may find, they'll have all of the symptoms that I just mentioned, plus their body temperature begins to rise. Their skin is no longer pale and clammy, but it starts to turn red. It is hot and it is dry. And this is really, really, really concerning. You may notice that they start to really have rapid, shallow breathing as well. They may become unconscious. They are floppy. They can have vomiting. And you may notice, particularly, you won't notice this in a little baby, but in an older child, that they actually become very confused as well. Their behavior is erratic. It's not right. And then they will become unconscious. And this is when you must start doctors ABCD. If your child does have any of these symptoms, you need to call 000 ambulance immediately. That is really, really important. So 000 immediately, because we need help. Remember, this is a medical emergency. You need to be prepared to start CPR. Remove all of their extra clothing, just get it all off, and you are going to start to cool them any way you can. So bring their temperature down, sponge them with cool water, use cool cloths, whatever you can to be able to bring down their temperature. One thing that you need to be incredibly conscious about too is that they may have a seizure as well. If you are actually putting them in a bath, there is risk that they may have a seizure, so please be cautious of that. Do not leave your child at any time. Please be aware of that. If they are unconscious, do not try and submerge them in water in a bath or anything like that. roll them on their side. You are going through if they are still breathing, and if they are unconscious with abnormal breathing, you are starting CPR, and that is really, really important. So you can see how that this can actually happen quite quickly depending on the environment. Hopefully you pick up before that actually happens with the signs and symptoms of heat exhaustion, and that you can start to cool them down. And remember, the most important things we can do is prevention, making sure that we are giving lots of extra fluids when it comes to hot weather, that we are being aware of not going out in the hottest part of the day, that we've got them dressed appropriately, including when we put them in bed, that if there is air conditioning available, that we're not chilling them down like an iceberg, but we can keep that on around 24 degrees, that we have lots of air circulation, not only in the house, but also thinking about if we do have to go out, because sometimes you do, it's not an option, you've got to go out, avoid tying all of those covers over the pram that restrict the air circulation. Ensure there is lots and lots of air circulation while keeping your baby safe from the sun as well. And of course, as we mentioned, we need to be aware of kids and animals in cars, that it can be 30 to 40 degrees hotter. Yes, we understand that accidents absolutely can happen, but know what to do. That is the key. So please be aware, know how to do CPR, and we implore you, please, we're heading into the hotter months. If you don't know CPR, if you don't know what to do, please enroll in a paediatric CPR course today. Don't put it off any longer. You know, the peace of mind of knowing that if an accident was to happen, that you would know how to help your child, or those who are caring for your child know how to help them too, is so important. So book into your class today, and if we can't service your area, then we'll help you find somebody who does. So are there any questions so far on heat-related illness at all? Please feel free, type them in, and I will endeavour to answer them. If not, no problems. What I'd love you to do is actually type in any subjects that you would like us to talk about on our next Facebook Live. Remember, we are bringing you these regularly. And the other important thing too is that please tag any of your friends who you think may benefit from having this good evidence-based information. So looks like there aren't any questions at the moment, so I'm going to say bye, and I will post the links that I was talking about in the comments below. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye-bye.